Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of BLS Show and Tell with CHAU TRAN. Ciao, good to have you, man.
Thanks for having me again.
Again, same topic. Last week got wildly abrupted by some technical issue. We're still not very sure why or where. But yeah, I figured I generally don't really like messing around too long on stream. It's better to have a new episode.
Mm-hmm.
And Ciao had a lot to tell in any case. So yeah, this is part 2, Declarative THREE.js and Angular. If you didn't see part 1, no worries, because Ciao is going to run you over everything we told. Is that right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I say let's dive right into it. And here is the presentation. I'm going to sit ourselves on the bottom row here.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna go to your GitHub.
My GitHub even.
And I'm gonna pull up that the last stream repo.
Okay.
So to show people where we at.
Okay, perfect.
So here's the URL for the previous stream repo. So anyone, if you want to follow, go ahead.
I'll put it on screen as well.
So on the previous stream, we started with using the vanilla 3.js code in the Angular in the app component. You know, like that cons scene, cons camera, cons renderer, and stuff like that inside the app component. And then we ripped it out. We used Angular 3 with the NGT canvas. And then we start with the mesh, with the box geometry, with the basic material. And then I told B-Man, now you see that now we can actually we can actually extract the mesh out to a component, so we can reuse this AppQ component whenever we want to. And then we try to mess with these events, and then we run into a bug, and then the stream just kind of like, we didn't know what happened there. We kind of stopped the stream right when we're trying out the click event. So that's where we stop. And at this point, we actually have like a spinning cube on the scene already. So excuse me. So feel free to clone this repo, run npm install. Yeah, that's what we have, and that's where we stop. So feel free to clone the repo, run npm install, and start the app, and you will see the same thing that we're seeing right now. Right. So on the agenda for today is, because we have a part 2, so we have more time. So I'm going to walk you guys through how this actually works, how basically how the NGT canvas, how the NGT mesh with these nested elements actually work from the Angular 3 library. And the main point is not to show how you guys use the Angular 3 package, but to show what is possible with the fundamental knowledge of Angular to build something cool.
Awesome.
So
yeah,
let's get started.
We're going to talk about content children, view child, element ref, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. Yep. Okay. Awesome. I seem very knowledgeable, but it's just that I checked the slide yesterday, so don't get your hopes too high. Awesome. Let's get started, Ciao. Take it away.
So let's start with a reminder. So I like to remind everyone that this is how the vanilla 3.js code looks like for what we just have on the screen just now that we meant to show, like a spinning cube, right? In vanilla 3.js, you're going to have to set up the scene and the camera. It doesn't really matter what you put inside the camera here. It's arbitrary. But basically, you're going to have a scene and a camera. Then you're going to have to set up a renderer with the size, with the document width, height, all this stuff. And then you're going to have to append the canvas element to your body. Next, you're going to have to set up the mesh. So a mesh is like an object in the 3D space. Then you're going to fill it with the geometry, which is like the shape of this mesh, and then the material, which is the texture of this mesh. So this is what we're doing here. We set up the mesh that we're going to put, which is an object that we're going to put on the scene by adding it to the scene. Finally, we set up an animate function, and we will call this function every frame with request and animation frame. And ideally, we want to keep the frame rate at 60 FPS at all time. Right. So basically, this function gets called every frames per second.
And I think the thing here, it's basically recursion here, right? So you have an animate function, you put it inside request animation frame, which is a browser native function, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And then later on line 19 here, we actually call it to initialize it. And after that, it will just loop around.
Yep. So when I put a slide yesterday, I forgot to put in 2 more lines, which is to change the rotation of the mesh on every frame, right? That's what we're doing with animation. Right. So that's vanilla 3.js. And I want you guys to focus specifically on these 3 lines, which is to construct the mesh. So here we construct the mesh first, and then we create a geometry. We assign it to the geometry on the mesh. Same thing with the material. Alternatively, you can also do something like this. You can construct the geometry, you can construct the material, and you pass it inside of 3 mesh. Why do I want to show you guys this to focus on this? Because this is exactly how I use this approach to build the mesh directive, which we're going to show later. Right. So again, that is how vanilla 3.js code looks like. Oof. It's just kidding. It was all right. I mean, I love cool projects out there using vanilla 3.js. All right. So now here is Angular 3. And first, we have the canvas. So the canvas set up the renderer, the scene, and the camera. The first 3 lines that we see in the vanilla 3.js code. Next, we have the mesh, which is exactly like 3.mesh constructor function. Next, we're going to have the box geometry and the mesh basic material. Again, this is the geometry and the material. And finally, we have the animation loop. So here we just call animate ready, and we're going to rotate the cube on the X and the Y axis by 0.01 every frame. So that's basically how Angular 3 looks like right now. And to compare, it's actually less code, more declarative, and that is why I built Angular 3 in the first place.
Way more Angular-like, and it's way less just imperative code copied from Three.js. But I think one interesting thing to note, if you have an existing Three.js animation and this is just something you want to render, you do not need this. You can create a canvas yourself and use an element ref and do the native element thing as we started out. So if this is something you're interested in, if you're here to check how to use just plain Three.js and Angular, check back the previous stream, BLS037, where we go over exactly that. We start out doing that, but this is the minimalized version, way less code, declarative way of doing this. Yep, great.
And this way, because when we animate or when we run a function every single frame, we want to run it outside of the Angular zone, so that is not going to trigger chain detection. Angular 3 does that for you automatically.
Cool. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Again, that's just the component code. We're going to have to import the module. So again, I just want to quickly go over what you need. So the canvas is from 3 core module. The mesh is from the 3 mesh module. The box buffer geometry is from the box buffer geometry module, which is from a secondary entry point called geometries, and the materials from the material module from the secondary entry point materials. So this way that you only need to pull in what you need, basically. And again, WebStorm or your IDE will help out in importing all of these modules for you. Right. Next, I want you guys to focus on this piece of code, because this is how, basically, this is our template right now. And I'm going to go into how this actually works. All right. Yep. So how does this actually work? It is basically just content protection and hierarchical dependency injection. It's just those two things, a very basic thing. When you first learn Angular, you're going to have to run into these concepts. But do you know what else is possible from these two concepts? I mean, it's not really content protection. It's actually content querying, because there's no content here. There's no content protection here. Right. First, content protection and querying. Just a little reminder. We all know, I mean, at least Angular developer, we all know that if we have this on the template, which is we have the parent, and then inside of, sorry, I'm gonna just skip that. Inside the parent, we have the child. So we all know that the child is going to be the content of the parent, right? And this is the parent component. So now we have the content, like focus on the wording of my wording. I'd say content. So it's just the content. To project, which is content projection, we use the ng content tag. So this is where we're going to render that child. For querying, so content querying, we're going to use content child. So this actually working right now. There's nothing new to Angular developers. But do you know, even without the ng content, your content child still works?
I did not know that.
Yep. So the content is always there.
Right.
As soon as you write that on your template, Angular structures the relationship between the parent and the content, like right away, without even having to have that ng content. That ng content is the projection. So you have the content, you want to project it. So the content is already there. You can just query it. So that's the main point here. So again,
so a parent, irrelevant if you have ng content or no, a parent can always access what is inside of it.
Correct.
And the ng content, only you need it if you want to display it. But if you want to get a hold of it to do something with it, you don't need it.
Right. That is the takeaway. That is the main takeaway.
Great. Takeaway time. First 50 minutes in the show, and I already learned something. This is why I do it, folks.
Right. So now we get back to this NGT mesh with the box geometry and the basic material inside of it. So clearly we can see that the mesh is the parent, the geometry and the material is the content of this mesh parent. And this is the mesh directive, again, simplified version of the mesh directive. So you can see that I have that sector NGT mesh there.
Yeah.
I don't have any template because it is a directive. I don't want any template. I don't want a component because I do not want to render this NGT mesh tag on the DOM. Because imagine in like a 3D project, you might have up to 500 or 1,000 of these mesh. You don't want to have 1,000 of these tags in your DOM.
Right. And so this directive is just a matter of organizing the structure, adding data to the top level. And
basically that.
I think for those of you that are not really sure what is a directive, the easiest way for me to think about it, a component in Angular is a directive with a template. Or to put it in the other way, a directive is like a component, but without a template. So it only adds behavior. It doesn't add anything to render. This is,
correct.
A nice mental map.
Yes, that is good. And by the way, the selector of directive, we all know that it is recommended, or like the convention is to use the attribute directive selector like this one.
Yeah.
Selector like this one, right? But really, there is no stopping you from making your directive selector like an element tag.
Right.
Like what I'm doing here with the NGT mesh. So I want to feel natural when you put NGT mesh on your template, that you're triggering this directive.
Yeah.
All right. So in this directive, again, I query for the geometry directive and the material directive. And you pay attention here. I'm just going to grab the geometry directive, which is like a base and abstract directive for geometry. Same thing with the material, because I might have different geometries or different materials here. So I'm just going to grab these two directives. And again, it might be optional. And after I have it, I just say, hey, there's a mesh, private mesh in here. And then on ng on init, I just call new 3 mesh and I pass in that geometry and the material that I initialized from the directives. So this is why I show you guys the another version of creating a mesh by passing in the geometry and the material.
Right.
So this is how a mesh directive construct a mesh object from 3. So by just understanding the content protection and content currying and knows what available to you, you can start building things.
Yeah.
It just opens up possibilities. Right, so next is the hierarchical dependency injection. And to start out, I'm going to show you guys a simplified version of the canvas component. So this is the NGT canvas component that we use. And this is a component. This is the only component in the whole library. And you can see the template. I only have that canvas element that I'm going to use for the renderer. And beside on this component, which is always the parent component of everything inside of it. So basically everything you want to render inside the 3D scene is going to nest inside the NGT canvas element. And in on this NGT canvas, I provide a couple of component store or injectables, whatever you want. For this particular library, I use NGX component store. B-Man and I have a very extensive series on component store.
It's like 10 hours of component store on this channel. So if you're ever in doubt, but it's not even hard, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. By the way, it just these store are just services that hold some piece of data. So basically, this is the canvas store. So canvas store holds some data about this canvas, like the size, the viewport, the camera, and stuff like that relating to the canvas. The animation store just holds some information about what animations that I have to run. Do I have to clean up all of these animations and stuff like that? Event store is to store all of the events that we're going to set up on the mesh, just like the click event and the pointer events. So that's managed by the event store. Finally, from the slide, finally, we have the loop service. The loop service actually kick off that animation loop, and it's going to run every frame. The loop service is going to run that, and of course some other injectables that is really not related. So this is the canvas component.
And again, for using this, you don't need it, but this is just to show how it's built. So this is behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is just
import
behind the scene.
Right, we're just going to import NGT canvas. You did all the hard work for us.
Yep.
Thanks, man.
And again, I bring this back. Remember this code: setting up a scene, setting up the camera, setting up the renderer, setting up the mesh, add the mesh to the scene. So 4 steps to show that mesh, just to show that mesh. So the canvas component sets up the renderer for you, it sets up the camera for you, it sets up the scene for you. So you don't have to do from line 2 to line 7, right? So now what about this line, scenes.add mesh? So how does the NGT canvas know when we put a mesh inside of it to add it to the scene? That's the template, right? NGT mesh inside the NGT canvas. So this is the canvas component again. And we all know, we've all just learned that you can just content child. You can just query for the mesh directive, right? Read that. You can just query for the mesh directive. And maybe you can start adding it to the scene on the ng after content in it.
Yeah.
And this store actually initialized the 3D scene, so you have that scene available inside the canvas component. But you can literally add any 3 object to the scene So you can have NGT anything or NGT anything too. So inside your canvas component, what are you going to query for? Nobody knows.
Right.
You might have hundreds of lines of content child.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna have to do some like very hacky stuff with like abstraction or extents or inheritance to only have one content child and stuff like that. So what can we do here? What can I do? What can I do here to not use the content child? Right now, I'm going to bring back this very simple example of parent and a child. We saw the parent component in the content projection, content querying example, but here for the dependency injection, I'm going to show the child component. So this is the child component. The template might contain something. I just leave it empty here. In the child component, you know you can just inject the parent component. If it is a child, a content child of the parent, you can just inject it.
By referencing just the parent as is.
Yep, just that. Just like that. Just like on line 6 right there. You can just inject the parent component for you. I mean, Angular can just inject the parent component inside the child if this child is put as the content of the parent, right? And remember this, on the parent component or the canvas component, I have this providers array, which means these are the component providers. So it is available on the parent component injectors.
Right.
So basically, these providers have the same life cycles, the same context as the parent component. And the child component can inject everything that you have on the parent component providers as well. So the canvas store, the animation store, the loop service, the event store, I can inject it all from the child component. So pro tip, learn this, go to this link and learn it. I'm going to copy this link and bring it over to the private chat.
Yeah, I'll add it here.
Yep.
So I'm going to share it on, actually, I think I'm going to share it inside the chat at first. So all our friends here can do it, but I'll also make it a small caption. But yeah, the Angular homepage documentation is pretty great. And this is the URL that CHAU is now sharing.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely read up on this. But the whole idea is, I mean, it kind of makes me think a component is some sort of injectable now.
It is.
It is.
It is. But because like when you think about component in Angular, Angular actually advertises component as like building block, like showing content, showing, displaying template and stuff like that. And it's true, it has template. But when you replace the component with just directive, it starts making more sense that it's just an injectable, because it doesn't have any template. It just deals with the business logic behind the template.
Yeah, it just adds behavior and hierarchy. And so and at some point you need a template to tie it all together. But once you have this, and this is what I think NGT does in a great extent, just the bare minimal to put it all together, organize the hierarchy, and the rest is all done outside of sight.
Yep. Right, so on the next slide, we go back to this. So now we know that the mesh can actually inject the canvas component. So this is the mesh directive again. Now we can inject the canvas store that's we provided on the canvas component. And we can just, after we have the mesh, we call this canvas store scene.add this.mesh. And this is just an example. I do something differently in the code, but this is just to show you this is how I do it. So for the mesh, the geometry and the material, I use the mesh query for those stuff and construct the mesh. But to add the mesh to the scene, I use the mesh to grab the stuff from its parent and add itself to the scene. So yeah, that's just so the content protection and the dependency injection. I know dependency injection is kind of more on the advanced level, but it is kind of required knowledge when you first learn Angular. So I deem it as basic knowledge when it comes to Angular. So with these two basic dependency injection, content protection knowledge, I was able to build this library around just these two concepts, and just opens up so many possibilities.
Yeah, nice. I think you can get it quite far without knowing it, in fact, because I'm a super simple dev in the sense that I use a few basic operations and I do everything with it. I'm like the kind of dev, if only thing you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So
Right.
I tend to do, I've done things with components, tie them together, and I knew there must be a more elegant way. But if I need to build something like right now, you can do
absolutely, absolutely. And this is more into a library developer versus application developer.
Yeah, definitely. And but yeah, Ajita here, welcome to the show. He said I did something very similar with directives, where child directive injects parents. Really, really useful. Yeah,
Yep.
I think. And probably this is also what has been done. I'm not sure, but I guess this is also used in the Angular material libraries.
Yep.
Yeah, so definitely a good place there.
Right. So last but not least, the last concept that I want to get into today is NX Workspace Generators. And this is only relevant to NX Workspace because Angular 3 is built on top of an NX Workspace.
Right. Yeah. But this is another topic that I got a lot of content on, and I think everybody that is watching this should definitely consider looking at NX for any serious project.
Yep. Right. So again, a reminder: this is what we have in the mesh directive that we tried to create for geometry, geometry and material. And here, the geometry directive is the base geometry directive that all of my geometries extend from. The same thing apply for the materials. And just to show you, this is the list of all the geometries from Three.js. This is the list of all the materials. And this is just 2 categories from Three.js. And it's already a lot.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to stop a little bit. I want to shout out to Benoit. Benoit is one of the person that interact with me on Twitter, and he's having his own implementation of Three.js Angular that he's not open source yet, which he will, and he's doing some really cool stuff with the router. I'm very excited to get into it, and I mean, I'm more than willing to collaborate on creating the best Angular integration with Three.js library.
Awesome. Benoit, welcome to the show, by the way. If you ever want to hop on the stream and show whatever you have done, you are more than welcome. Just let me know. Happy to host you.
And when I realized that I have to repeat the process for each geometry, each material, or each Three.js class, I'm just like Genie here. I'm like, wow. And then I'm like, what?
Yeah, this is a lot of work.
I want to, can you show that latest comment of Benoit?
Yeah.
Yes. So for an object 3D in Three.js, you can add object 3D into an object 3D. So that's what I have as well. That's what I have in one of my abstract class. That is checks for a parent object 3D. If it has the parent, it will add to the parent. If it does not have the parent, it will add to the scene. And you can control that behavior as well. So it's just, I'd have to work the documentation. So. Yeah. Right. So just want to show this is the basic, very basic box geometry directive. So you have to have a selector. I export as well. So this is to expose the geometry on the template. So instead of trying to query this in the component code, you can just do export as with the template variable, and you have access to this instance directive, which exposes the geometry. Next, I provide the 3 geometries. So this is what the geometry directive, when you do content child, I do content child 3 geometry as the injection token, and then I override that with this box geometry directive. I extend that base class, pass in the box geometry from 3. I have to set up the input with the constructor parameters. I have to provide the init function that tells that instructs how to build or how to create this geometry, and I have to like pick a place to call this init function. It can be ng on init, it can be ng after content init. It's just kind of random. So now you see this code. I have to repeat this code for every single geometry, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work to maintain as well.
And for every material, and for all the other,
and for the other classes, which has some or might or might not be different.
Yeah.
And then I started looking into like I was bored. I scroll up and down my directory tree, and then I saw this. I saw tools, generators. I'm like, I might be onto something here. And that's what I did. I'm like, oh, aha. I have an aha moment. Oops. Right. So because the generators, my generator gets a little bit complex now, so I'm going to just show a quick demo of how they did it. I'm going to open up the project right now, so bear with me.
Yeah, but generators is definitely something that I think a lot of people don't get into soon enough. If you use an X and you do the same thing, you see yourself doing the same thing or building the same structure and copy and pasting it, you're probably better off spending a bit of time in making it a workspace generator. Thanks for zooming the fonts. And I'm actually going to say hi quickly to a lot of the usual suspects. We have, as often, Serkan, nice to see you. Abel de la Fuente, nice to see you. We have my wife Derlis here, says, hey, ciao. We have a few new faces or people that I haven't seen on the stream yet, which is good. Jalmo de Brasil, do Brasil. And we have Bogach here. Welcome. It's good to see you. And Antonio Cardenas de Honduras. Super bien. Thank you all. And actually, Benoit is from Montreal. I love to see that we have international reach here. We're an international bunch here at BLS. So awesome. Cool. That was the quick break here. Workspace generators.
Yep. So here is a generated box geometry. So again, it has some import, right, with the name, with the correct geometry class from 3. It set up some selector, set up the export as, set up providers, it set up this input type, set up the input, and finally it set up that geometry type so that this abstract class can use that to basically call new this geometry type, like that. Right, so I have this pattern across all of my geometries. Oops, I did not want to do that. Across all of my geometry here, just like that. So now I'm going to remove all of this.
What are you doing, dudes?
I just remove it. Did I? Yep. So it's empty now. And my index is gonna scream at me.
Yep. TypeScript's gonna be furious.
Yep. So now you see that generated. Oh, by the way, this index is generated as well. So need to stop this one whenever I stream. All right. So this is the template. This is basically so a generator is basically it has a template. You have a template. You provide a template with some variable, and then it's going to run something. It's going to generate a code for you. So that's the generator. And in here, it's just set up all of the imports, right? I have the name. So on my template file is name at dasherized. You cannot see it that really easy, but I'm going to put it here. So the file name is name dasherized directive. .ts.template. So when I
guess yeah, go ahead.
so when I tell like, hey Angular, generate this template for me with this parameters. So when I provide it with the parameter of name, let's say box buffer geometry, that's the name, and then the dasherized function, which is the function that Angular provides me. And this when I provided name and dasherize, it will know to basically call dasherize with the box buffer geometry, which will give me box buffer geometry and that.
Yeah. So it's a template language,
basically.
like yeah, right. It's like Pug, I think, or another templating language.
I believe it's Pug.
Yeah, and you can add methods like dasherize. There's classify that make a class name out of it, and these building blocks allow you to generate whatever code you like.
So now you can see that on my template I have import name from 3, which is basically my name, right? So I just make sure that 3 have this import. Then I use dasherize for my selector here. I check if I have another alternative. So for box, for geometry, I do have box geometry and box buffer geometry. These two are the same thing, but I do provide different selector. So whatever you want to use with, just go with it. And then I have the export as with the NGT and the name.
Yeah.
And then I have this provide right here. So basically, it's just set up all of the thing that was happening inside my geometry directive.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that after I finish explaining this step. So just write up my name directive, extend the abstract. So I pass in the abstract. And then I have the type here. So the type would be geometry type, and then the name, and then just set up everything in this template. And now, the moment of truth, I'm going to run this template by running npx ng workspace generator lifesaver. Hopefully, it's no errors. So you see that. Now my geometry folder will be filled with all of that.
Right.
And now my directive is all ready to go.
Yeah. Can you quickly show the list of actually names that you're about to generate? Because you have, at some place, you need to have a list of all these names, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So inside of my generator, I have some entities. And if you look at geometries, so that's my name.
Right. I love how you call it lifesaver. Yeah.
It is a lifesaver.
Yeah, right. So it will take all of these, and together with your templates, it will just generate it all for you.
Yep, you can see that now my geometries are back.
And one of the things I want people to realize, if you don't already, like code generation, the first thing people see is like, yeah, I'm a lazy dev, and I just don't want to write this all out. This is, I think, a very valid point. If you see yourself doing this all the time, go look at automation, because this is your job. Your job is not to write it all out. Your job is to find a solution. Yep. I think as a developer, your job is that solution. But the other benefit it gives you, if at some point you figure out, oh, now I need to update them all, you can just get rid of them, change your template, regenerate them. And this is where you are really happy that you automated it in the first place. So
I mean, the fact that I call the generator lifesaver should tell you something. Because so this is just geometry. So again, I have materials. So look at materials. That is also generated. If you look at textures, these are also generated.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yep. And finally, the post-processing. All of this also generated.
Yeah, awesome.
So,
And all of these have a component, a module, an index.ts that exports them, and they're all exported in the main index.ts. So you can do this times 3, and that's basically the amount of files you have to write, and then some.
Yeah. Right, so that's just a quick demo of my generator. I'm going to go back to the slide.
Awesome.
And in summary, so what you take away is content querying and hierarchical dependency injection come out of the box. So regardless of what you do with your content is already set up for you. So make use of it.
Yeah.
Here you go. Regardless of whether you use entry content or not, Angular already structures your parent-content relationship.
Yeah.
And a content child can inherit the injector of its parent thanks to the dependency injection system. So you can inject anything from your parent. So imagine you have like component A, component B, which is a child of component A, and then you have component C, which is a child of component B. Think about let's say you have an output. If you want to, let's say, interact with component C, you're going to have like an intermediate, like a middleman output in component B. But like if you know that you can just inject a service from the component A inside the component C, you can just proxy that over the service. And the service is actually like bundle against that component A, so it's still isolated. And
Awesome.
NX only use workspace generators for boring, repetitive tasks. So this is a summary. This is the takeaway from my slides.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Any question?
Yeah, I already asked it in the chat if there's any questions. And if you have, let us please know.
And there's a question about my mechanical keyboard.
Yeah, just go ahead. Show it. We can hear it, but we never saw it.
I use a Vortex 3.
Nice.
So this one right here. It's not Bluetooth, so it's kind of one bad thing about it, but it's pretty nice quality.
Awesome.
Oh,
awesome.
I messed up my camera. So let me plug it back in. There we go.
And I got a very nice message here, and this is from Rades Golea. And Rades, hey, B-Man, I have to say I love your drive. Thank you so much, Rades. And I know him for quite some years now. You won't see passion like this everywhere. And I want to take this very opportunity to share something that probably a lot of you don't know. But actually, my first appearance on YouTube was, and I'm going to show this right here, was on the channel from Rades. And you can see here that in April 6, 2015, so that's 6 years ago, I was invited on Rades' channel. And we talked about Loopback, which is an API framework based on Express.js. And Rades invited me to talk about how to do user management. So I was a guest there. So this might very well have influenced the fact that we're here right now sharing knowledge. So Rades, it's great to see you here. And thanks for giving me the opportunity back then to be on your stream. I see I never liked it, and I never subscribed to your channel. So I'm going to do that right now in retrospect. Yeah, but this is pretty cool. And here I'm showing a project that I've been working on, which is a Loopback SDK generator. We talk about this stuff. It's not relevant anymore, but you can see a glimpse of it right here. And you'll see the interface. I'm trying to search for it. But this is a project, and this project is actually super similar to what I do today with NXPM Stack. So if you wonder why I built NXPM Stack and how I could pull it off in a fairly short time, this is because I've been working with this stuff for about 6 years and thinking about it for quite a lot of time. So nothing comes for free in this world. And yeah, cool. Rades, super nice dropping by and making me remember this piece of history in my career. So very cool. This was before the time that I started traveling. And actually this very project that I just showed you is the reason that I was invited to a startup in the United States. So open sourcing this project has been a life-changing thing for me. So my message to you is open source your stuff. That's the inspirational message. Yeah, Rades says he was a very junior developer back then. Me too, actually. And yeah, awesome. You also inspired me, and it's cool that we're still in touch. Sometimes we touch on we get in touch on Twitter. Awesome. So yeah. Also, Benoit says, thank you so much for both of you. Well, thanks for joining. Thanks, Chow, for doing. We're not stopped yet, done yet, by the way. We're going to go in live coding, but it's just having a quick little break here. I didn't know the existence of generators. It's a very good use case for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, NXPM Stack, my current main project that I'm working on, my current main open source project, I should say, is in essence like 60 generators, and they will all run in sequence, and this will end up in a full stack app. So these generators are so powerful, you can save maybe 10 to 15 hours of your work by putting it in generators. And in this case, I put like, I don't know, dozens of hours into getting it, but that's not the point. The point is you can automate it all. And the benefit is it's super repetitive, so you can go back and repeat it another time. And it's all descriptive, it's declarative. So basically you declare your desired state, run the generator, and it will do the right thing for you. So cool. Yeah. And last thing I want to mention here is Benoit says, I can share a preview link to the project I'm working on to create THREE.js content in Angular. And
absolutely.
make sure to connect to Benoit and ping me, and I will boost it there. So
cool. I mean, so the next, you don't have to go back to my slide. The next slide just demo, so just go back to you.
Yeah, I mean, we can take a quick look. The next slide will be demo, but if you want to show it,
no, it's fine.
Okay, cool.
No.
So this is where we are last week.
Yep.
And we had a mouse over event that set hover to true and false, and then at the point where we had the click event, now this was broken, and we found an issue in your code base, in your library. There was a little issue here. So, and I think one of the things I wanted to do here is basically say, hey, active is not active.
That is true. That is correct. Yeah. That's all you need to do.
And this will allow us to, when we click, I'm clicking right now, when we click, you should see this thing grow. And this means that we can get rid of this method. So here we are. Let's hope connection doesn't break at this very point. But yeah, we can go from here. Take it away.
Yep. So now let's, you know, how you can, in the project, how you can like hold your mouse on the scene, and you can just rotate around.
Right.
Right. So we're going to add that. So first of all, let's remove the animate function. So we're not going to animate this cube.
Okay.
We're going to animate this. Yep. So this cube will no longer animate, and but you can still interact with it. You can just still click it and stuff.
Yeah, but then now it sees like a block because we view it from one angle, right?
Right. Now let's create a new component and call it controls component. Just create it in light here.
I'm going to be lazy and call this one controls.
Yep, controls component. Remove live 49. Just control.
Okay.
Yeah. Remove light. Yep, and remove everything on the template. Change the selector, and might as well just declare this component as well in the module.
Yep. Let's go here and open my module and add it back down here.
Cool. Now let's go back to that component. So in the template, we're going to use NGT orbit controls. Orbit controls. Yep, that. And you're going to have to import the module.
Three module, and let's quickly go back to app module to show that imported for us this very module here. Great.
Now let's use the app control under the NGT canvas.
Yep.
And just save. And now you can use your mouse and move that cube around.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
So left click is rotate. Right click is pan, and you can use the two fingers to zoom in, zoom out.
But I can use the scroll wheel because
you can use
a real mouse.
Yeah. Okay.
That's pretty awesome. Is there a way to reset it back to the original?
Refresh.
Yeah. Okay. I figured. Awesome. This is pretty cool. Yeah.
And
So
that's it. And that's it. And the reason why I put the controls inside of this component, because we want to do something with this object controls.
Okay.
But like, if you just want to use the object controls directly, just put the object controls under the canvas.
Yeah. Awesome.
How is it related if you have two objects with object both? So let's do this. Can you add to the cube component an input and call it position?
Yes. So what I can do here is say add input and call it position.
Position, and the type will be 3 vector 3.
So 3.
No, lowercase 3.
3. Just
No,
like
actually, sorry, with the capital T. Yep, vector 3.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. 3 vector 3.
Yep, and you're gonna use this input on the NGT mesh.
Okay. So right here where we use it, we can say position equals.
Yeah, you want to put that on the NGT mesh first on line 19.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, we're gonna buy the position on the NGT mesh to that position input.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
So that we can like pass it from the outside.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay. I got
now
it.
Now on app cube, let's do position.
Right here.
Yep, it is going to be an array, and do 1 0 0.
Okay, so this takes again XYZ coordinates.
Yep. So you can see that it pushed to the right a little bit.
Yeah.
Now let's duplicate line 10.
Yep.
And have -1.
Now we have two cubes sitting together.
Now you can just orbit around.
There you go. Awesome.
So the orbit controls take over your camera. So no matter how many objects you have on the scene, it will be affected under the same scene.
Right. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And these ones can be interacted with separately. And yeah, this is pretty cool. It's actually nice. You get a bar right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man.
So yeah, so I just want to show that for what's his name? Raris.
Yep.
Raris. So I just want to show that a sample. So let's just go back to one cube now.
Yeah. Just get rid of this one and put this on 0 0 0 just for the sake of having it, so somebody can play around with it.
Right. So now let's on line 39 on the orbit controls. We're gonna listen for the ready in output. So on that, there's a ready.
The outputs.
And just make that ready and pass in the event.
Yep. Create this method here, and this is what gives us the ready with
import it.
Controls.
Yep. Yeah. Make that controls if you like. And now on this controls, we're gonna do controls dot. Basically, now it gives you the instance, the controls instance that the NGT orbit controls create. So basically, now you can just mutate anything that you want on this controls. So we want this controls to be auto with rotate, set up to true. We want the speed, auto rotate speed, to be like 2 or 3, because like by default it's really slow.
3, you say? 2 or
3? 3. Yep. And save that.
Gonna make this happy. And
so
now,
you're not seeing is auto rotate, do you? You don't see it auto rotate, right? The reason why is when you set up auto rotate on the controls, you're gonna have to have this control participate in the animation loop so that it updates itself. So now on line 40, have the animate ready.
The other event, yep, and call this basically animate, I guess.
And pass in event.animate object.
Okay.
And yeah.
Create the method here, which will say, again, orbit controls. I'm going to add a little quick void here, so my linter is happy. And then we say animate object.
Dot update.
Dot update, which I guess is a method.
Yep. And that's it. Now you will save and you will see that auto rotate.
There you go. That's cute. I'm going to put it a little bit faster, actually. I'm going to put it on 5.
Yep.
This is nice. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So now we're going to modify this a little bit. So you can see that you can rotate this in any axis or any dimension you want, but let's limit it. You can only rotate it on the x-axis instead of the y-axis. So what you're going to do is you do controls dot max polar angle and do math.pi divided by 3.
Math.pi.
Pi with capital.
It's a constant.
Yep. And do the same thing for min polar angle.
Okay. Min polar angle. Math.pi.
And say that. And now you can see that you can only rotate it sideways.
Now I want to quickly test something, and what I want to do to just drive home this point is add 2 cubes, because I think that will give a bit of a better idea of how it's rotating. And what I can do now to interact, and you can see my mouse is going up and down, but it will not drag me in these other angles just right here. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool. And yes, Radis, this is WebStorm, and you should definitely use WebStorm.
Right, so now we have the cube, but it's not very interesting, and it still does not look like a cube. It doesn't have any dimensionality, if you ask me. So we're going to add some light. We're going to add some light to this. Okay. So for light, you can just go to the NGT canvas. We're going to add the light directly to the NGT canvas. No, not there, like inside of the NGT canvas. So the first one is NGT. Actually, sorry, before we do that, let's change the material of this cube.
Okay. Materials inside the app cube.
Yep, so instead of basic, let's do physical material.
Physical material. And I need to import this, which in turn will import my, it will import this 3 mesh physical material module, which again, this is generated code, this name. Okay, I have a physical material.
You will see it's now it becomes black instead of red. The reason why is, imagine this cube is an object in a dark room. There is no light like reflected off of it, so your eyes cannot see the color.
Yeah.
So now we're going to put in some light. So let's go ahead and put in NGT, ambient light.
Ambient light.
And you're going to have to go to app module and import the 3 ambient light manually again because of that bug I still have.
I thought this would have been fixed by now, CHAU, but no rush, no pressure.
now you save, you will start seeing the color again, and you will maybe see some, right there. So now you have some light that reflect the color of the cube. Now let's add NGT spotlight. Again, you're gonna have to import it again. Sorry.
3 spotlight module.
Yep. And to save, just go ahead and save. Now you will see dimensionality on the cube. You start seeing, oh, there's some like dimension here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you can see depth by having this the top level a bit wider, a bit lighter than the rest.
Yep. So so the spotlight is basically a light like on top of the scene. Like it goes down and it goes like it looks at the center 0, 0, 0.
Yeah. So
now let's move this light a little bit. Position.
Takes an array.
Yes, it will always be an array for position for X, Y, and Z. And I guess give that 0, 0, or 5, 5, 5 for now. Now you see that the light actually it goes in front of the object a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, now what can we do? Let's put in some plan. Let's put in like a plan so we have some shadow.
Yeah.
Let's create a plan component.
Okay, gonna be copying this thing and call it app plane.
Yeah.
And gonna call this the plane component, and I'll do the setup here real quick and get rid of this one and add it to my module. Import it here and okay.
Cool. All right. So yeah, the first thing is I want you to expose a property called half pi.
Half
pi, and do that math.pi divided by 2. Benoit mentioned the radiant pipe. It is actually a very good idea I'm going to have to do, because every time I need to work with pi on the template, I have to do this.
Yeah, right.
Right, so now let's do NGT mesh. So again, mesh is an object, right? The plane is the shape that you're going to give it, which available through the geometry. So there will be a NGT plane geometry.
This asks for auto import. Radis, if you want to use WebStorm, this is what you generally get if the library author doesn't have bugs in their import mechanism. Again, no pressure.
we're gonna use the same physical material with this one.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get this physical material.
Yep,
bring it back over here.
With different color. So give it like a color red for now, I guess.
Yep.
All right, now on the plan geometry, let's have the R's input.
R's input,
and no, it is going to be an array. So R's is constructor argument.
Right.
So I'm going to use this array and I spread it when I call new something.
Right. Yeah.
So this the plan geometry R's. Can you just open up the documentation of Three.js for the plan geometry? I mean, we just quickly do that so you know how R's work.
Yep. Figure out this one. And I guess here in documentation, and here we should be able to find
the geometry. I look for plan geometry.
Oh.
Yep. And just scroll down. So you see that constructor plan geometry. It takes in the width and the height. So that is what we're going to use for this array.
Right. Yeah. Here,
right.
Yeah.
So width and height.
Width.
So
height, with segments.
Yep. Yep. So we're going to pass in 100 for width, 100 for height, and maybe let's just save.
Yep.
And go back to the scene. And
now we need to add it to our.
Yep. Canvas. Correct. Yeah, I forgot to add it to the canvas. So just add app plane. There are some questions that let's get to later. Ooh, let's change the color of the cube.
The color of the cube and not the plane.
I mean, whatever. We're gonna change the color to different anyway. So now that's your plane, but we're gonna have to rotate it so that it's on
horizontal.
It's horizontal instead of vertical.
Yeah. I
think it's just a good stopping point to answer some questions.
Yeah, sure. Let's go ask some questions. And I think Bogach is I hope you pronounce your name well. Is there a target attribute as well for some lights?
Yep.
And next comment. Yes, I found it in the docs. Awesome. We love self-supporting people here on the stream. Yeah, not sure if you have anything to align it on that, Chow, but
definitely. I mean, I'll get back to let's finish our example and then we get to it later, because there again, just the concept of content protection. There's some attribute element or directive that you can nest inside. Nest inside of geometry, and then you can have the same thing.
Yeah. I actually think this question, and this has been out here for a few minutes from Javier. Can you import an example of Three.js examples into Angular? If you can, the example that is the name of decal. I think it generally the idea if you can go here, pick an example and paste it in and make it work.
Yeah, I mean vanilla way, yes.
Yeah.
But to convert it to Angular 3, then you're gonna have to, learn Angular 3.
I think I was thinking about this as well because the nice thing is that you do it all Angular. The downside is if you now find some great animation, you basically have to convert it. Have you thought about doing like an AST parser to check out what's done?
Yes. But I still need to, I guess, like flesh out the Angular 3 first.
Yeah, but this is definitely, so in the future, you can imagine that you would drop in a snippet of Three.js, the AST parser will analyze it and say, oh, this is exactly this into Three.js, but don't expect it to be neatly wrapped up into components. It's probably like one big component that renders it out.
Right. So now let's rotate this plane. So on the mesh, it has a rotation input.
Rotation.
And it is going to be an array again, x, y, z. So the first one is -half pi.
-half pi.
And 0, 0. So now to save, and you see it's horizontal.
Yeah.
But you see that it's kind of like in the middle of the cube. Let's move it. Let's move it down a little bit. So on the mesh of the plane has a position. We want to move the y-axis down. So just 0, -0.5.
-0.5. So that's this.
And 0, and save. And you will see that it goes out.
Yeah.
Yep. Raris picks up on the inside joke.
Yep. Actually, there was no Angular v3, and this is while CHAU was working on it. When I saw the namespace, I was like, "Dude, you finally created Angular v3." So yeah, this is the inside joke. I'm still voting that we actually call it, instead of NGT, call it NG3 here. But I'll get with that. I'll probably submit a pull request for the generator. Yeah, awesome. Finally, Angular 3. I love this Angular 3.
Yeah, so you see that on your plane, there are two colors, right? One is like purplish, one is the blue. So the purplish one, if you zoom out, can you zoom out? That is actually your spotlight.
Right. Okay, this is pretty cool. Yeah, now you can see it. And now it's getting really clear about how this world actually how this world is coming together, I guess.
Yeah,
love it.
Yep. So now let's put in some fog. Let's put in some fog, and then we're gonna put in the shadow. So let's go on your app component. Right. In your app component on line 17, let's create a new property called fog, and it's gonna be new. Did you have 3 import in here?
I don't think I have.
Let's do that. Yep. So import star as 3 from 3, and we're gonna create a new 3.fog with the capital F.
Of course, new.fog.
Yep. And the first argument is the color, so let's just put in white for now.
Yep.
And let's do 1020.
Okay.
And now let's use the fog on the canvas. So on the canvas, there's an input called scene. And scene takes in a scene option, which is an object. And on the scene options, there's a fog. So just pass in the fog. You cannot do that yet.
Yeah. Yet. I love the yet. Ooh.
So now you have some fog, right? So now we know we have the plan there. Let's just change the color of the plan to white as well.
Okay, let's call it a literal white. Now it's getting really foggy. Yeah.
Yep. So now the next thing we want to do is modify the light a little bit. So on the spotlight,
all the way up. Spotlight.
Yep. On the spotlight, let's make it cast shadow. Let's do cast shadow, and that is true. So now in Three.js, shadow is not the default. You have to explicitly tell Three.js to say, hey, this object will cast the shadow, and vice versa. You're going to have to tell which objects can receive the shadow.
Right. So some spotlights send out, basically can trigger a shadow to be drawn, and you need to tell which thing actually renders out a shadow.
Yep.
That's all.
So now the next thing is the cube needs to cache the shadow as well. So on the mesh of the cube, there's a cache shadow. And set it to true. And now the plane will be receiving the shadow. So on the mesh of the plane, let's put in receive shadow. True. And save, and you will not see any shadow yet, because again, you have to tell Three that you want shadow. So on the canvas, on the NGT canvas, there's a shadows input, and set that to true. And hopefully you will see some shadow. I think it's a very, very light shadow.
Yeah, but I can see it from here, and you can probably it's in the front of the screen right now, and you can see it moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you can still interact with the cube. You make it bigger, the shadow will be bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think indeed it might be a bit light for people to see, but yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
dude,
I guess
that's pretty awesome.
And I mean, now you can create more cube. You can create like a position array, and then you can loop over the position array and render your cubes.
So yeah, okay. So we can do a positions array. So what do you have in mind? So let's say
do this.
Positions.
Positions. It's gonna be an array of array. So the first one is 100. Let's pick those two. 100.
100 and have come on -1 00, and then we're gonna just do an ng container here and loop over.
You don't need the ng container. Just loop.
Yeah, you can do it on the cube itself of positions. Yeah, I guess. I should always do what my guests tell me to do. So annoying if I'm telling somebody how to code and they don't do whatever I tell them to do. So I'm just gonna this.
Now let's put in some more position. Let's do 0, 1, 0, and let's do 0, 2, 0, and save that.
There you go. This might not be suitable for work, CHAU. Let's get rid of this and make it a bit larger. Oh man. Yeah.
Let's do.
I'll mess around with it a bit, but yeah, you can. But you can actually start doing quite fun and interesting stuff here, because, and I guess we already went over this, but this is just Angular. Now it's just up to you in Angular how to do your stuff.
Yep. And now let's just finish it up with one last thing. Do you remember the zip file that I give you?
Yes, I think I have it somewhere.
If you have it, let's go ahead and extract it. And
yeah, already Rad has already mentioned it's not going to be suitable for work. It's going to be banned on YouTube. I will probably get flagged.
My bad.
Yeah. Okay, I got it here. So let me go here and
I guess go once you have it, extract it and put the content into the assets folder.
spaceship.zip. Okay, and here we have scene bin and that. So I'm gonna go to source app assets.
Minecraft monster. Sorry, I did not think about that when I say the positions.
Yes, it was a Minecraft monster.
I did not plan that. Okay.
I'm just extracting it here in this spaceship. I guess also texture did a lot in our benefits that is just a big red square. I think it's like a Tetris block. Let's put it on that way. So cool. I got some textures here. I'm going to get rid of this macOS folder and
cool.
which is
so now we have now we have what I call a GLTF file.
Yep.
So a GLTF file is a model file that we're going to load into the scene. Yeah. So now let's just go to your app component again. Actually, let's create a component called spaceship component.
Okay, let's do this quickly here. Spaceship component, get rid of the content, call this app spaceship and get rid of the model and do this module thing, which we all love Angular for. Okay, cool. Okay.
All right. Now inside on line 91, let's go ahead and inject a loader service. Actually, it's constructor.
Constructor, private read only, service, loader service from Angular 3 core.
Right now, let's create a model $sign, a model $sign property.
Yep. Okay.
So it's going to be a stream. So this .service .load .use, and if you start typing out GLTF all capital, there's a GLTF loader. So we're going to use this loader, and that's the first argument. No, just the GLTF loader, and that's the first argument. The second argument is the path to your model. So it's going to be /scenes.gltf. I think it's no S there for scene. It's just scene.
You're
and
right.
Yep. And now on line 88, let's do an ng container and do an ngIf. We're gonna async pipe on this model.
Okay, ngIf model $async as model.
Yep. And inside of this, do ngt primitive. And I think you're gonna have to import this manually.
Oh, really? Is there an issue? I'm sorry. I'm bad like that, man.
Just imagine you using VS Code.
Oh man, you have to do this all day. Yeah.
3 primitive module.
Yeah.
And on the primitive directive, there's a input called object.
Right. Object, and we put in.
And
model.
you can pass in model.scene. So a model is like a pre-built scene. So you can use the primitive is used to load pre-built scene, so you don't have any like geometry, material, etc. And now just use the app spaceship on your canvas and save.
And it will refresh, or it did already. There you go. Whoa, dudeness. Wow. Okay, I didn't expect this spaceship.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get rid of your plane, get rid of the cubes, and we're going to modify it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh man, but this is awesome.
All right, so now let's so on the canvas, let's have the camera input on the canvas. So we're gonna move the camera out a little bit.
Okay, yeah. And this is the camera inputs.
So
positions.
There's an object. So it's a camera option. So an object, on that object there would be a position, which is an array. So let's do 0020. All right. So now it's moved out a little bit, right? But the fog is a little bit too much still.
Yeah.
So go ahead and on the NGT canvas as well, there's a created output.
Okay, created.
And let's do, no, you don't have to create a method for this one. We're going to do event.gl .set clear color, and we set the color to black. And we will also modify the fog to black as well.
Okay, yeah, so fog is black here.
And
here.
we change, and we change to 15 and 25.
There we go. This looks awesome, man. This looks very awesome. Yeah.
But the light is a little bit crappy. So on the spotlight, let's do 15, 25. 20 and then 5.
Sorry, 15, 20, and 5.
Yeah, and I guess that's pretty much it. That's the demo. So I just want to show that, hey, you can create these objects. You can load external model because, I mean, like 3D, you have a lot of places to buy models, to build models.
I'm gonna get rid of the
yeah, absolutely.
angle so I can just check what's. This is very cool. And this actually, I mean, not sure if it shows on the stream, but this is buttery smooth on my end.
Actually, you can now. Let's put on the canvas. Let's put NGT stats.
Yeah, NGT stats that we get auto imported for.
Yeah. Just say it will show the frame rate.
Okay, and this should refresh in a second. And FPS, it's now 2330 FPS, which is I think the maximum
for
human perceivable difference.
I think because of the stream as well, because usually it takes the refresh rate of your monitor. So usually
right.
it's 60. On my monitor is 100. But yeah, that's it. That's
super nice. Completed. And as you said, these GLTFs, sorry, these are things you can just download and import straight away.
Right.
And it's like, it feels to me, it's like maybe some sort of rendered down version of everything you need to know for doing the animation. Is that a correct way to see it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty much.
Very cool.
And to top it off, I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna show a couple more samples.
Yeah, and Rada says something here about our ongoing bashing of VS Code. You brought VS Code back. Now there's 8. Don't poke the bear. I actually think these people are on the IntelliJ website downloading WebStorm. So that's probably what they're doing. Yeah, and yeah, I was about to ask that. I always thought from going from a cube to a full game, there might be some minions working full time. Position every circle cube, etc. Yeah, I definitely think that this is something you want to download for the majority of part. But it's. I mean, I can see myself building a whole scene like this with just these native how do you say, these low level building blocks, because I just don't have the patience for it. But it's amazing, and yeah, I'm definitely going to try and figure out in which app I can actually add something like this, because I build super boring apps generally, and they don't need any animations. I'm not a game builder. I'm not a gamer even. But yeah, I'm totally blown away by the possibilities. And let me quickly move back to your screen here. There you go.
So this is one example. Using some effect as well. So when I hover my mouse over something, it will highlight it. So that's an effect. And you can still move this around. You can zoom it, zoom in. And when I refresh, just change color. So
this is programmed by you, because this is now the question. Are you simply loaded a GLTF? But this is actually built with the declarative style.
Correct. So
Angular 3.
Yep. So if I show you app component, so that's it. That's the code, and this is the boxes.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to have some knowledge of Three.js because it involves a lot of math animations. So you still have to know a lot of. So there's 1,000 cubes. So that's 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have to, like this right here, and you still have to know some math. And this example is basically from the React 3 Fiber example, and I just rebuilt it with Angular.
Yeah.
So this one right here, I want to show a different one.
I think eventually any React app will be rebuilt. Any React app will be rebuilt in Angular at some point.
this is another one. And this is a nice one to put, I guess, onto some landing page. Yeah, is this. So
yeah. Awesome.
So these bars, they're like 3 bars. Right here, I don't remember. There's a flamingo. I don't know what that white thing is, and there's the like parrot. So these 3 bars are 3 GLTF models.
I guess the white one's a heron. Must be a heron, but I'm not a biologist.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's another sample, and one last one. I have a couple in here, but I did one last one. Oh, I want to show this one. Sorry. Second to last one.
Yeah, you can show as much as you like, Chow. I got next meeting is Monday in the evening, so.
So this one is the cube that we built, but it has some animation to it. You can see that when you click, it scales in a nice way. So this is using pop motion, and I have Angular 3/pop motion as well, but it's still experimental. But yeah, this is a nice animation library to use with these objects.
Looks super cool. Just show the other ones if you like, if you have. And Nada says, yeah, change it to Beeman to put on my homepage. I actually might, but I have to say that my homepage is not built in Angular. I'm using Gatsby.
Last one. So this is the one from Three.js website. So let's go to Three.js, and if you look for example, if you look for LOD, and this is the example that I built, and I'm about to show you. So that's right there.
This is like inception of the same object. They're self-referencing.
So LOD means level of detail.
Right.
So right here I have 1,000 of these sphere on the scene, but as I zoom in, you see that it has more and more triangles. So that's the level of detail is different. So if I move out, it gets less and less detail. So if I move in, it's more detail. So that's an example. It's actually very, very smooth on my screen, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody definitely go download this stuff and play with it. You'll be amazed by the speed of WebGL. It's it's simply amazing. It's astonishing whatever we can do with this. Now, Chow, did you know anything about Three.js before diving into this?
Nope.
Zero.
Nada. I mean, I guess the point of me building this library, I don't have any professional need or personal need for Three.js or WebGL.
Yeah.
I built it just to prove that Angular can do it.
Yeah.
So.
And it can do it fast.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Very, very cool. Thanks, man. Thanks a lot for sharing this with us. It's been super interesting, and it's one of the angles that I didn't really see this channel go into, doing 3D stuff. Also, personally, no need to build any 3D stuff. I've been always looking at Lottie, which is a animation library that runs buttery smooth. I'm mostly impressed by the fact how you can make it run so smooth on basically any device. And yeah, super interesting. Thanks a lot for doing this. I'm sure to have you back soon with totally different stuff, or maybe even more Three.js. So yeah, very cool. And I think that's it for today, and we can leave it here. If there's
that's it.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for watching. And Chow will be here on. We don't know what yet, but we'll find something. Thanks, man. And thanks everybody for watching. It was a pleasure. It's cool to see you drop by and remind me of my first stream 6 years ago. So everybody, thanks. Bye-bye.